Man United's in a ickle bit of a mess right now. We've got to be honest. The manager called out Sancho for essentially not being of the right standard in training. That's why he wasn't in the matchday squad yesterday. We'll get onto the game later, but the manager's called him out. The Sancho's released a statement essentially saying that Ten Hag's lied. Don't believe it. I always give my all. Fans are now arguing over what person to believe. Should they? Either of them have spoken publicly. How's the dressing room going to recover? What's your take on this? Have you taken a side? Do you think somebody's wrong here? What is your take on this current situation with Sancho and him trying to expose Ten Hag as a liar?
Yeah, well, firstly, I don't think it's black and white. I think there's so much going on at Manchester United, you know, even take away from the Sancho situation, you've got the ownership situation. There's just so much going on. And Manchester United is never out of the scrutiny spotlight. So for me, that's kind of where I start in this. So I don't think that Erik Ten Hag should have said what he said in the way that he said in the press conference yesterday. I mean, I'm all for him being honest, and I think that's an attribute that a lot of Manchester United fans respect about him. But I can't understand what Jadon Sancho thought he was doing. I mean, we have to, as fans, back the manager. You have to, as players, back the manager, especially a player that has come in to, lack of a better word, a complete and utter shitstorm. And he's actually done quite a good job in the last year of kind of building this togetherness in the squad. And along the way, he's had Mason Greenwood, Cristiano Ronaldo. He has had all the scandals you can have in the space of the year that he's been here. And when I saw Jadon's statement yesterday, I mean, I think he should defend himself, but to a point, and there's a way of doing it. The fact that he's pinned it to his Twitter profile after an hour after a loss, and not just a loss to Arsenal and a loss in the way that we did lose. I think, bro, read the room. You know, this is a manager, like I said, that has just come off the back. We've literally just kind of got out of the Mason Greenwood situation, still there because he's on loan. But all of these things, it's like, Jadon, read the room. And I think now as a result of that, whether he plays for Manchester United again, that's is going to obviously be the next thing. But even if he stays in the squad, even if he, kind of comes through, that's kind of tarnished him there now, I think. And he was already under a lot of scrutiny. He's not really been performing to his Jadon Sancho at Dortmund self, which is a shame. But I think to come out and say that and to basically call out the manager in such a public way off the back of a loss, going into an international break where this is going to fester, it's going to get worse, I think it was bang out of order. But I know that's a controversial take.
How about yourself, Staffy? Because I'll call it out. I saw your tweet when I woke up this morning. It was on my TL where it seems like you're backing Sancho with hashtag free Sancho. His accusation that Ten Hag has lied, that this isn't true. What's your thoughts on this situation that's now arisen?
I mean, free him out of this club, man. I don't want him to stay in this club. I wanted him sold in the summer, not because I don't like him, because we kill technical footballers whenever they come to this club, and it's been a trend that's been happening for years. So he's just a new victim. Listen, you're laughing, but it's the truth. I heard this fan base tell me that Pogba's shit. That's nothing new that I'm not used to. I heard fans
for Man United, they said. They didn't say he had no ability.
No, there's people that still call him just shit. They just purely call him shit. And that's the level of knowledge to what some of our fans in this fan base. Obviously, I'm not saying the whole fan base says that, but there's people that still say that. I had people messaging me yesterday saying you're defending him. Obviously, they thought I defended Pogba a few years ago, as if I was on YouTube anyways, and saying, oh, you was probably defending Pogba, who was shit too. Same thing that happened to Di Maria. We called him shit because he had a poor season. There's so many technical footballers that came to this club that we have destroyed for one reason or another, and somehow it's always them and it's not us. About the situation itself, though. Listen, I'm not Sancho in, I'm not Ten Hag out, because people took my message as me saying I'm not backing the manager. I'm down the middle on this one because there is reasons why I think Ten Hag was wrong. And there's a reason why I think Sancho was wrong. The thing about Ten Hag, I've seen him multiple times. And Terry, you talk about this so many times when it comes to Lee Gunner, when you guys address this. Lee Gunner is always an advocate of managers calling out players. And you've persistently always said managers come out and protect their players, even though it's not the truth, but they come out and they protect their players. We just lost 3-1 to Arsenal, and you're being asked about a player who's not in the squad. It's the same thing when managers get asked about players that they're linked with, and they were like, out of respect, we're not going to talk about them because they're not in our club. He wasn't at the game. Could have easily said no comment. Or he wasn't in the game today. I'd rather talk about the players who played today. He's done that before. I've seen him defend De Gea saying, De Gea is a top player. We want to keep him. Meanwhile, they was taking back his contract offer because they wanted Unana. He was protecting Maguire. Meantime, he wanted him sold. Even Ronaldo walked out on us on the pitch, and they asked him right after the game, what is he going to do about it, blah, blah, blah. He said, we'll discuss that behind closed door, basically. I don't remember the exact words, but he didn't even put him on blast, even though that was the most obvious one, a player walking out on the pitch, and even that, he protected him. But then you come out and you call the player and you say he's not training well and he's not up to the standards. Now, listen, if he's actually not training well, he's not up to standards, that's fair play. I'm not defending him based on that because I have not seen the training sessions. I don't know what happens in training. Maybe Ten Hag is right. Maybe he's not training well. But in Sancho's head, I am training well. Their standards are it's so clear that the standards are different because he thinks he's training well. The manager doesn't think that. The issue is that we put out our dirty laundry. But who started that? It was Ten Hag. I've seen Ten Hag protect players, but this time he didn't. Sancho retaliating, yes, it's not the best thing. If you said something that bothered me, I'll wait until we go backstage and be like, Terry, I didn't like how we said that. Please, next time, don't say that again because it offended me. Something like that. That's the polite way and the sensible way to deal with it. But maybe I'm not sensible. Maybe you say something, I'm like, no, Terry, don't say that about me. And then I clap back while we're live. That's basically what Sancho did. And I don't blame him for retaliating the same way. I would have hoped that he didn't, but he has a complete right to come out and defend his name and clear his name when someone is saying, because it's one of the most disrespectful things as a footballer to be told that you don't train well. That is you didn't play well in a game. The manager saying you don't train well. It's the basics of being a footballer to train well. So obviously, if he thinks he's training well, he didn't take that well. So he came out and cleared his name. The situation sucks as United fans, but I don't think people who are coming at Sancho and now they're putting all these old news where people saying he was not training well, and I'm seeing videos of him doing press-ups. You know, they're saying, look, it's a half a push-up. Bro, Tom Little,
yeah.
one second. Tom Little, you watch the NBA, you know Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard came out and said, because when they shoot air balls, his manager tells them, if you shoot an air ball, you're supposed to drop down and do 10 push-ups. Mind you, Kawhi Leonard has won multiple championships and he's a future Hall of Fame. He said, I'm not doing push-ups. What? Because I missed, because I didn't do well at training. He's like, I don't care. And that's a Hall of Famer. People are all of a sudden talking about training and standards of training. But when I was telling them about preseason, I'm saying he played well in preseason. They said preseason hype. It was an actual game that I've seen with my eyes. But you guys are believing a training session that you didn't see.
Staffy, I understand where you're coming from. Let me just first say what I know you're not calling me out. I agree. I don't like dirty. No. I agree. I'll tell you this now, though, before me and Lee are gonna go live tomorrow. He will slam the manager for doing it because now Ten Hag's done what Lee Gunner asks for. Lee Gunner will change his mind and say we'll find a way of twisting it into a bad thing. I already know, right? If he doesn't, I'll hold my hands up. Anyway, I think he's wrong to have done it, Ten Hag, unless there's one thing at play here. And I go back to the most recent example we've seen at the highest level when Mikel Arteta publicly stated why Aubameyang wasn't there. It wasn't the first time Aubameyang had not lived up to the standards, expectations, or behaviors. And it got to a point where the manager's like, I'm not protecting you anymore because your behaviors or your training standards or whatever it may be, and I'm generalizing in football here, is impacting this team and squad. So you're right. I want the manager to say, I rate Maguire while he's trying to sell him. Not just to be respectful, but equally to try and maintain the valuation. We knew that Ronaldo was going to be phased out, and you probably were someone that advocated that because there's no way you could do the pressing and the running that was needed at his age. But the manager was still probably happy to have him on the bench. The player forced his way out. We remain professional. I have a feeling, and I've got a gut feeling, and it's why you're seeing the training things be shared. I do think it's relevant. I don't think Ten Hag should have done it unless we're in that scenario where it's the third, fourth, fifth time, and the manager say, hang on, I've been nice, I sent you to the hills, I put my arm around your shoulder, I protected you, and all in an effort to try and motivate you to train to the high standards, and I don't think you have. Now, Sancho might, maybe the manager, maybe you're right, and the manager hasn't communicated with him, and they're both just a miscommunication. I just, knowing Ten Hag's career, he's a meticulous man. He is going to tell people bluntly, you're not up to standard in my view. I just don't think Sancho's finishing training. He's going, oh, well done today, Sancho. You were great. And then goes into his office and says to his coaches, he was really bad today. I personally don't believe that. The reason you're seeing people bring up all these previous stories at City, Dortmund, and England about bad training habits is because certain people are saying Ten Hag's lied about this and just made it up. Mm-hmm. So the fact is there's proof in the past that his training standards haven't been good enough. I do think is significant when you start going down the lines of calling Ten Hag a liar. Saying Ten Hag's telling the truth, but he shouldn't have said it publicly, is different from calling him a liar. If he's telling the truth, you've got your answer, Staffy, as to why him as an individual is failing at Man United because he isn't training hard enough. And we knew last year his fitness wasn't there. And a lot of people actually believe the reason he was away for 3 months is because his fitness was dire. And he was got sent away, get yourself fit and come back. And the manager protected him. Maybe, listen, I pray to God that was the reason. I hope he wasn't away for 3 months with severe mental health issues or a different type of problem he had to solve, because I wouldn't want him to go through that as a human being. So for me, it's like, I don't want it being aired in public. Totally agree with that, and Ten Hag started it. But I'm remaining like sort of in the middle on this whole debate because I just have a gut feeling that this isn't the first time Sancho has pissed the manager off, and it's got to a boiling point now, because you know what we needed yesterday? We needed Sancho on form in our squad, but you can't be picking players that are not following the rules. And so I don't think
the manager rates him, if I'm being honest with you. I really don't think he rates him.
I think the manager, listen, maybe the manager doesn't rate him, but at the same time, Ten Hag was, I don't think he was rude when he said it yesterday. Listen to the video, but that looked like a man that was pissed off. Mm-hmm. And if it was a player that you don't rate and don't want in your squad, why would you be annoyed at him? Why would you just go, great, you're in a reserve. You wouldn't, I just don't think you would put the time and energy he has into him. He wouldn't have protected him last year. I think he's tried to get the best out of Sancho. Sancho hasn't delivered. And for me, now all we're now seeing is we're going to get, from his fanboys, there's going to be a rewriting of history. I still see him do it. They talk about he should be playing like he's been delivering for 2 years for us. I saw his PR team have come out and said Sancho doesn't listen. They've clearly read Twitter, listened to what his supporters have said, and then released a statement similar, basically saying there's favoritism. That lovely buzzword that people come out with. There's favoritism, and he doesn't get enough opportunities. I went and looked at the stats because this stat doesn't lie. Since Anthony joined Manchester United, Sancho has played 1,775 minutes. Anthony has played 2,129 minutes. That's the equivalent of 4 games. So Sancho had 4 games less than Anthony since he joined. This lie that he hasn't been given an opportunity compared to Anthony is a myth. It's a myth. You know, and listen, I want Sancho to work out at Man United. I was a massive advocate for him coming. I rate him highly as a technical footballer. I love what he does. But he doesn't deliver, doesn't maintain the shape, doesn't track back enough and help the right back. And if you're not going to do the tracking back, the other end of the pitch, you've got to be a game changer. And if you're not a game changer up the attacking end of the pitch, and you let the team down with the shape and the running and the pressing and the helping out your fullback defensively, and the training standards aren't there, that should infuriate Man United fans. Not to a point where you abuse him, not to a point where you're disgusting to him, because Sancho doesn't deserve that. But for me, I'm on my manager's side more so than I am Sancho's. But I do want to wait for the dust to settle, because I don't want to go totally in, and then it turns out the manager says, look, he's always brilliant. It was one bad training session and I shouldn't have said anything. And then I'll defend him. But I just have a gut feeling, because the manager has protected people before. The manager rarely behaves like this. And I don't know. It's a worrying thing for me if we've still got players at the club that are not training hard enough. Rivals, what do you think of this situation? I mean, you're emotional about it than we are.
From an outsider's point of view, like, I don't see why Ten Hag would come out. And first of all, I don't agree with him coming out and saying that. That should be kept internally, right? But with how he's tried to help Sancho, you know, he put his arm around him, like you said, Terry, already, tried to bring him back into the team, gave him some game time as well when he came back. I don't see why Ten Hag would lie about something like that. But I don't agree with him putting that out in the public. And Sancho, to be fair, that statement doesn't really hold any weight. It's fair enough for him to come out and defend himself because, yeah, Ten Hag was wrong to come out in public and do that. But it doesn't really hold any weight because Sancho hasn't really done anything since he's been at United. You know what I mean? So the fans aren't going to sympathize with him because it's not like he's been performing like a Rashford, for example, and then Ten Hag saying he hasn't been training well. And then Rashford comes out and says that. That holds a little bit more weight. Sancho's right in defending himself because the manager was wrong, in my opinion, to come out and say that in public.
No, he wasn't.
But he was, in my opinion, he was wrong to say that in public. You just
Eric
make
Ten Hag.
managers.
Wait,
Hold on, Tom. Let me land, bro. Yeah, I get that, and I agree with you. That's fine. But managers lie all the time. We know this. He could have come up with something else and dealt with that internally. That could have come out later on. You don't come out in public and say that, bro. Especially now when the window's shut. Because what's the situation now? I asked Staffy this the other day. Where do Man United go from here? It's awkward. The window's shut. The next window's going to be open in January. Where do you go from here?
What I do find interesting. Go on, Tom. Go on. Sorry, go on.
I want to spin another narrative of it. Eric Ten Hag over the past year has done almost seemingly from an outside looking in. He's tried to help Sancho in many ways. He's given him the time off to sort his head out. He's tried to play multiple different positions. He tried him as a false nine this preseason. He's been very much that positive manager, arm around the shoulder. Yeah, Sancho's boss, this, that, and the other. And it's clearly gotten nowhere because Jadon Sancho was still struggling at Manchester United. At this point, I just see a manager who's going, right, I've tried the nice guy stuff.
Yeah.
At this point, let me just be a bit of a knob to him. Let me call him out. Let me see if he needs a negative reaction to kick him into gear. And he almost gets to stick up his arse and goes, right, I'm going to prove you wrong. How are you going to say that about me? Let me step it up. Because he's tried the nice guy stuff. He's tried the nice guy shtick. And it's not worked. Because if it had worked, Sancho would be starting. But he isn't. So maybe it's not... if it is training, it's a different kettle of fish. But ultimately, I see a manager there who's went, I've tried the nice guy thing. I've tried to keep my arm around you. I've tried to... let you go and sort your head out. That's not working. What do I do now?
Yeah.
The fact that he didn't do it in pre-season, the fact that he waited until once the window's shut, when he knows he can't get rid of him, even more backs at one point, because this Sancho training thing, it wouldn't be a one-off thing. It would be a consistent thing that's happened over a number of weeks. Therefore, it would have been happening during the transfer window. Therefore, if he wanted to get rid, he would have got rid in the transfer window. Ultimately, he's waiting until after the window was shut to call them out on it, which to me looks like him trying to get a reaction out the player.
I think the naive thing is... I think the naive thing is that, and we go back to like Arteta and Aubameyang, was that when that all first happened, Arteta said it's a disciplinary issue, he's not in the squad, and that was it. And for a few games after that, he was asked about it, and he just said he's not in the squad. I think if Ten Hag had come out yesterday and just said it's a tactical decision and left it, or it's a disciplinary issue and left it, it wouldn't have given Sancho room to then fire back on social media. I mean, that's the manager's. So I think that was naive. However, if United had won yesterday after Garnacho's goal, if that had stood and United had won, and Ten Hag had done the exact same thing, I think the United fan base would be fairly united in saying the manager's right. Garnacho scored. I think they'd be backing him. So I do think that. I think that. Well, you might not be, Staffy, but I think as a general, the fan base would be a lot more behind Ten Hag's decision because it had worked out yesterday. So.